The wind howled across the empty plains of Wyoming, carrying with it the scent of dust, pine, and distant rain. The sun had barely begun to sink beyond the jagged mountains when rancher Samuel Brody rode down to the creek to water his horse. It had been a long, unforgiving day, like most on his land. Cattle to feed, fences to mend, and silence to keep him company since his wife's passing 3 winters ago. He wasn't expecting to find anyone there, let alone her. At first he thought it was driftwood, something caught between the reeds. But as his horse snorted nervously, Samuel leaned forward and saw a pale skin glimmering beneath the amber light. A woman, half in the water, her lips trembling, her eyes wide with terror. She was clutching her torn dress, shivering from cold and fear. "Please, I'm begging you," she whispered, her voice so soft the river almost carried it away. "Don't let them find me." Samuel jumped off his horse, his boots sinking into the mud. He pulled her up gently, feeling the weight of her frail body. But when her face turned toward him, he froze. There was blood at her collarbone, a bruise along her jaw, and fear carved deep into every line of her face. She wasn't just lost, she was running. He carried her to the bank, wrapped her in his old duster coat, and looked over his shoulder. The land was quiet, but in the Wild West, quiet didn't mean safe. "Who's after you?" he asked, but she just shook her head, whispering, "They'll kill me if they know I talked." Samuel's instincts screamed that this was trouble, the kind that didn't go away. But something in her eyes, something broken yet burning, made him stay. He led her to his horse, lifted her gently, and rode back toward his ranch. As they reached the cabin, dusk turned to darkness, and coyotes howled in the distance. He lit the fire and gave her water. She sat silently, staring into the flames like she'd seen ghosts. Hours passed before she finally spoke. Her name was Evelyn Hart. She'd come from a nearby town called Dalton's Ridge, a place run by a man named Warren Pike, a ruthless land baron who ruled with money, whiskey, and fear. Evelyn had been a maid in his house, but she'd overheard something she shouldn't have. A plan to burn out the smaller ranchers who wouldn't sell their land. When Pike found out, he'd sent his men after her. Samuel clenched his jaw. Pike was known across the county, but no one dared cross him. Still, hearing her story lit something in him, something long buried, beneath years of loneliness and quiet anger. "You're safe here," he said, though even he wasn't sure if that was true. That night Samuel couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, rifle in hand, watching the plains. Shadows moved in the moonlight. Every sound made his heart race. Somewhere out there, the men hunting Evelyn were closing in. Just before dawn he heard horses, the crunch of hooves, the low murmur of voices. He woke Evelyn, motioning for silence. They crouched by the window as 3 riders stopped at his gate. One of them called out, "Morning, Brody. We're looking for a runaway girl." "You seen her?" Samuel didn't answer right away. He looked at Evelyn, trembling in the corner, her eyes begging him silently not to betray her. "No one here but me," Samuel said flatly, gripping his rifle. The men stared him down for a long moment before turning away, spitting into the dirt. But as they rode off, one of them glanced back with a smirk that sent chills down Samuel's spine. They weren't convinced. When the riders disappeared over the ridge, Evelyn began to cry. Samuel placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone anymore," he told her. "I'll keep you safe." But deep down he knew that by sunrise his quiet ranch life was gone forever. The next morning the air felt heavy with tension. Evelyn insisted she leave, afraid she'd bring danger to Samuel's doorstep. But he refused. "You came here for a reason," he said, "and maybe it's time someone stood up to men like Pike." Together they rode toward Dalton's Ridge. The journey was silent, except for the pounding hooves and the wind whipping through the grass. Evelyn kept her eyes low, but Samuel could see the determination behind her fear. She wasn't just running anymore, she wanted justice. When they reached the outskirts of Pike's property, the smell of smoke and whiskey filled the air. Pike's men lounged outside the saloon, rifles slung casually over their shoulders. Samuel dismounted slowly, hand resting on his revolver. He knew this could end only one of 2 ways. "Warren Pike!" His voice rang out across the street. The townsfolk peered from behind doors and windows, whispering. Pike stepped out from the saloon, tall, broad, and cruel-eyed. "Well, well," he said with a smirk. "If it ain't the lonely rancher. What brings you to town?" Samuel's voice was steady. "The girl you tried to kill? She told me everything." Pike laughed, a sound as cold as steel. "You think anyone here will believe you?" This town belongs to me. But then Evelyn stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. Not anymore. She pulled from her satchel a ledger, Pike's own book, filled with records of bribes, arson, and blackmail. Samuel's heart swelled with pride as she held it up for everyone to see. Pike's smile vanished. You shouldn't have come back, he growled. In a blur, his gun flashed. The shot cracked through the air, but Samuel was faster. His revolver roared, and Pike fell where he stood. The silence that followed was deafening. The townsfolk slowly emerged, eyes wide. As the tyrant of Dalton's Ridge lay defeated, Evelyn fell to her knees, trembling. Samuel holstered his gun, walked to her side, and helped her up, the same way he had by the river days ago. But this time her tears were of relief, not fear. Months later, the ranch was alive again, the fields green, the air peaceful. Evelyn stayed, helping Samuel rebuild what he'd lost. The quiet between them turned into something deeper, something that felt like home. And as the sun set over the plains, Samuel looked out at the horizon and smiled for the first time in years. Because sometimes the people who stumble into your life when you least expect it are the ones who give you a reason to live again.